to the Indigenous Projects and Events speaker series. The Indigenous Projects and Events is an Indigenous-owned company that offers a variety of services. You can go to www.indigenousprojectsevents.com to find out more information. And part of the services that we offer is a Speakers and Facilitators Bureau, where we have currently over 50 Indigenous facilitators, speakers, knowledge keepers from across Canada and recently globally, um, who who are amazing Indigenous leaders within their fields, within their industries. And today I'm super honored to welcome Joanne, who is a respected Woodland Cree knowledge keeper, a researcher and educator. And Joanne brings over 4 decades of lived experience rooted deeply in the teachings of elders from Little Red River Cree Nation in Fox Lake. She was raised within community, culture, and ceremony, and she continues to sit regularly with elders, carrying forward the knowledge and responsibilities entrusted to her. Joanne is a project coordinator and educational researcher with Kokoms Foundation. She's the founder, and it is a charitable non for profit organization dedicated to uplifting Indigenous knowledge, healing, and education. She is a fluent Woodland Cree speaker and a powerful voice in Indigenous research methodologies, traditional healing practices, tobacco teachings, Indigenous agriculture, and online Indigenous education. Her work bridges together traditional knowledge systems with contemporary educational approaches, embodying reconciliation in action. With over 41 years of living and leading through Indigenous worldview, Joanna's contribution extend far beyond the classrooms. She's a curriculum designer, a trauma healing facilitator, and a cultural educator whose teachings continue to impact communities in many different ways. So please join me in warmly welcoming Joanne. Thank you so much for joining us, Joanne.
Hi, Dansik and Anaskomtin. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for having me on your series.
So, can you start by telling us what inspired you to create the Kokoms Foundation and what's its vision for Indigenous education and healing?
Great. I love that question. So, the foundation has just been established for about 1 year now. And prior to that, I had done a lot of volunteer work for other not for profit societies. And I gained a lot of experience and knowledge within that field of work. And I've realized that there's a lot of discrepancies and gaps in that type of not for profit charitable work. So, the foundation was established. It's a fully Indigenous owned and operated, and it was established as kind of the conclusion to my research. So I'm just completing my doctorate studies in education, and yeah, it's really great. I actually finished my coursework 3 years ago now, so I'm a PhD research candidate, which means I'm done my coursework and I'm an active researcher now. So for the past 3 years, I've been doing observatory research and sitting with elders, and my research is focused on online Indigenous education. And it started during COVID, actually, is when I started my doctorate studies. And during that time, I was trying to figure out, what should I study? There are so many issues that need to be resolved within First Nations communities and families. And I had a really hard time nailing down what I wanted to study. So during COVID, there was a lot of First Nations and Indigenous information being shared and coming up. And there was I was looking at all the comments and all the commentary people were making in discussions. And there was a lot of discrepancies on what people thought about sharing Indigenous knowledge. No, you're not supposed to record. You're not supposed to take pictures. And, there was a real, misunderstanding for what is ethical, an ethical way to share our knowledge. And this even goes into the classrooms as well, like for
Yeah,
teachers.
and if I'm wrong, I mean technology, phones, cameras, like they didn't exist before, like before colonization happened, obviously. It didn't exist.
Yep. So there's a lot of transitions, and we're first. Well, I mean, all people are, but First Nations are very innovative, and we move with the times. That's kind of like the nature of who we are. You know, we watch the weather, and like also the nature of who we are is we're researchers. We're already scientists and researchers because we've been doing that since time immemorial, watching the land, watching the animals, and this is observatory research, right? So. Um, there's a lot of discrepancies during COVID. So that's where I got the idea for my study. So my study is based on online First Nations teachings and the experience of educators, like language teachers who are teaching online, for example, teaching Cree online. So that's what my study is about. And the conclusion to my study basically is this foundation, because and I'm going to tell you the conclusion to my study. I haven't actually written it or published it yet, but I'm so excited about it, and to share the knowledge that.
All of the research
Okay.
that you've been collecting.
Yes. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm totally ready. I'm
Okay.
excited.
So, you can do First Nations or Indigenous education online, and I'm really focusing on how I speak, because I speak from a First Nations perspective, not an Indigenous. And what I'm finding a lot in research in at the academic world is they're grouping us together.
Yeah. So
Inuit.
do you want to explain what the difference is when you're saying First Nations and Indigenous?
Yes, absolutely. So the government of Canada classifies us as Indigenous. So that includes the Métis, the Inuit, and the First Nations. So within my research, there's, especially in the academic world, it's all grouped together, and there's a lot of discrepancies in research right now because there's a lot of misunderstanding and it comes to the language. So there's a lot of theories, indigenous theories, that are using, for example, Woodland Cree words, but they're used in the wrong way. So I'll just give you an example of there's a Métis scholar. I can't remember the name, and I don't want to mention it, but there's a theory that the scholar had created using the Cree language, and the theory is called Kimujli theory, and you can look that up. So the theory talks about, so Kimujli is a Cree word. Well, the word is Anagimuch. So if you know what the word Anagimuch means, and you're a language speaker, you know what that means. But when it's interpreted by a non-Indigenous person and they're using that term and they don't have a full understanding of it, it's like misinterpreting our knowledge and I want to say misappropriating our knowledge, because that's not what that word actually means. Anagimuch means like, you're going out with somebody secretly to go meet this person secretly. It's not a scientific theory where you're talking about, I should read the article again, but that's just an example of how our language is being misused within research.
So maybe just to get a better grasp and clarity, like would it be like, for example, just the the in terms of Cree, and I don't know if it's Woodlands Cree or plain, like Woodlands Cree is Plains Cree, or those are the two different.
Well, we can understand each other. There's just a different dialect. Yeah.
Yes. So moon, for example,
Mm-hmm.
there is no like actual word for moon. There's the it is it the dark sun, or like when translated in Cree, it's like the dark sun or something like,
So,
right?
yeah, language is so important. And this is why, when it comes to research and sharing our knowledge and sharing our education, it's important that you're a language speaker. And if you're not, then you're at least trying, because then you're getting in to the mindset of positionality, of where your position is in the world, because our language is very different from English. And same with a lot of Indigenous languages all over the world. The way we see ourselves in the language is important, and how we portray that language and represent our people is also important. So there's a lot of, and I love the Métis. I love all people. I don't discriminate against anybody, but where I'm coming from is, when it comes to the language, you need to understand the language if you're going to be using it, and you need to have guidance from elders, especially if you're going to be talking on behalf of Indigenous people and the language. You need to have your backup. You need to have people backing you up, your nation, your family, your community, where you're from, the people you work with. And so there's a lot happening with the pretend Indians, right? And I'm starting to learn why this is happening. It's because the Canadian copyright law doesn't protect Indigenous knowledge. So there's a lot of people who are taking our knowledge, not really understanding it, and putting it out without proper protocol. And so I'm a huge advocate for hiring elders. If you're doing Indigenous work, it is amazing to have the elders as support because they're the ones who know how to heal. They're the ones who know how to guide the people who are doing the work. So this is why it's so important. I have a lot of elders that I visit with and that have become like a really close part of my family. So it's important that the language is respected when it comes to any kind of sharing of our knowledge.
I really love that. That so is that what the conclusion is of your
Okay, I don't even know if I got to the conclusion. So, okay, the conclusion is yes, you can do online teachings, but you can only do either language teachings online or you can do stories, sharing stories online. So those are the meaningful, ethical ways that you can share our teachings online because our ways, you have to, it's spirit to spirit, right? You have to be with the person. You have to be sitting with the elder. You have to go to the ceremony and do your 50%, because it's not just on, it's not just, here's an example. If you're trying to heal, it doesn't just happen. You have to do your own work. You have to do your own 50%. So when it comes down to Indigenous First Nations education online, it's the Kokoms Foundation is the conclusion because that's where people can come and get their teachings and bring their family and work on their healing and recovery. So it's an in-person facility that has everything, all different kinds of teachers and workshops and yeah, I can talk about the Kokoms Foundation a little bit more because it's quite in depth. It's like a full program, but we can move to your next question if you'd like.
So you described yourself as having 41 years of being Indigenous, and now that now that I have a little bit more information and description of Indigenous and First Nations, that's such a powerful statement. So what does that phrase mean to you in terms of lived experience and identity?
Okay, so in my field of work, as an educational researcher, I have come to find that there are a lot of people who really want to help, which is like so heartwarming and honorable and like, good on our allies and good on people for wanting to help and reconcile. But there is a lot of people that don't come from a good place or a good understanding. Like, in my opinion, you can't do First Nations healing work if you've never lived on a First Nations. If you don't know what it's like to live within a First Nations community, then you don't have any right to speak on behalf of those people because you weren't there, you don't know what it needs to take that healing. So I'm very proud to have been raised in Fox Lake. I was partially raised there. My dad is my dad's a fifth generation settler. My dad's a Muniao, and I love him very much. He was a very good, he's a good father in my life, and same with my mom. I'm close with both my parents. So, I had the opportunity to see both worlds. And growing up, this was really difficult because I didn't know where I fit in. It wasn't until I was probably like my late teens, I kind of, actually, no, probably my mid 20s, because even when I went to university, I didn't tell anybody I was First Nations because I didn't want to be treated differently because I saw, I see how people are treated differently if I represent myself as First Nations, Anyway, I was lucky to be able to grow up on Nation and just outside of Calgary on a farm. So I saw kind of two different ways of education. Specifically, I saw how different the schoolings were. And that's what inspired me to become a teacher. And actually, last week, I found one of my old journals. Thank goodness to my mom. She kept all my old schoolwork. And I found one of my journals from when I was in grade 2. And I posted a page on my Facebook, and it was talking about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it said on there, maybe I'll be a teacher, or maybe I'll be an inventor or a magician. And I'm just so thankful for my mom that she kept all of my previous work. I forgot where I was going with that comment, but you have to have lived experience And the thing that I always tell people too is that, you don't have to have an education to be successful. You don't have to have education to, get forward in your life, because you have lived experience. And lived experience is far more valuable. Sitting with your elders is far more valuable than going to school for 4 years and being away from your family and your nation. Like I've learned a lot through my school journey, and I've learned that, you don't need to be a doctor to make changes. You can sit with your elders and you can improve yourself. You don't have to, waking up at 3 a.m. to do all my work. It was really hard and difficult being a student for a lot of years. And yeah, so.
So you mentioned that you're fluent in Woodland Cree, which is amazing. Um, I would love to know like when that journey started of learning, or if that was just how you were raised, was within the language. But how has it shaped your connection to culture, community, and teaching? And you briefly talked about that in terms of how important it is to really understand the language when you're working with Indigenous people, when you're serving Indigenous communities. Um, so, if you could just talk and speak a little bit more about that, that'd be great.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I grew up on reserve and off reserve. So, my first language is Cree. When I went to kindergarten, I didn't speak very much English. And I had a conversation with my mom a couple of years ago about this. And, she was really sad for me when I went to school because I didn't speak a lot of English. And I said to her, Mom, that is the best gift that you could have given me, was my language, because that's my first language and that's my mother tongue. And, I've been away from my nation for so long. So it's true, if you don't use it, you lose it. But I can still understand everything, and I'm still working on my language to come back. It takes a lot of practice, but I would just encourage anybody, if you're trying to learn, just immerse yourself around people, have phone conversations. It's nice because I know it's there. I just have to, if I hear a word, I can remember it. It just takes me a minute to think about it. It's there. It's just slowly coming back. So I'm hoping that, if I lived in my nation for a few months, I'd be fluent again. But it's hard when you're in the urban area and there's not a lot of people around. So where I'm from, everybody's fluent. The children are fluent. When I taught up there, actually my first year of teaching, I taught grade 1 because a lot of the children couldn't speak English. So where
You're teaching them English, or
regular grade 1, but they couldn't understand English. So that's why they put me in that grade. And actually up there they have, everybody has teacher's assistants, but each classroom has their own assistant. It's almost like a translator, because everybody's fluent. And even like writing and syllabics, they're all fluent by like grade 7 or 8. So
amazing.
yeah, so amazing. The elders where I'm from, they were so adamant on keeping the language, and yeah, so.
Amazing. So, for those who may not understand the depth of tobacco teachings, can you explain why they're so important to your work?
Well, not only my work, but all Indigenous people. Tobacco is a very sacred medicine, and it's a gift that was given to us as humanity to be able to communicate and speak with Creator. So, not only for my work, but for everybody's work. So, I always lead my work and my projects with protocol and tobacco, and I was raised in my culture, so I understood, the concept of tobacco right away. We've been harvesting medicine since I was little, and it's just always been part of my life, and it's a very powerful, sacred medicine. And so I don't really do tobacco teachings. I encourage people to find an elder. If you want to learn about tobacco, find an elder. So a lot of the work that I do is guiding people to the right places. If you're looking for a good elder in this area, because I have connections all over Alberta. For some reason, I don't know why, but I've been doing work all over Alberta for the past couple of years. Well, probably about 4 years. So I don't really like to do a lot of Indigenous teachings myself. There's only certain things that I'm allowed to teach. One of those is moccasin making. And this is another important topic that I wanted to talk about, like rites of passage and knowledge transfer, because there's a lot of things happening out there that could be done better. So, for example, me, I'm not an elder. I'm not going to go out and do all these, First Nations teachings, but I can show you where to go, or how to go about it, or how to do it in your own way. Because when you're doing this work, it's a lot for yourself. You have to, reach out for yourself and follow your own guidance, and know what your path is. And so tobacco always comes first. And, we use tobacco when we pray. We use tobacco when we harvest. You put tobacco before you take anything from the land, and that's the reciprocal exchange of energy, because there needs to be an exchange, and even for knowledge. So when we're protocoling elders, we offer tobacco and a gift, and that is for the reciprocity and the energy exchange of the knowledge. So that's why tobacco is such an essential element. And I'm a big advocate for tobacco cessation. So I smoked since I was 11. And one of the things that I like to do is encourage people not to misuse tobacco, because it was never meant to be inhaled. It was for a medicine for communication. So I really encourage people not to smoke, and that's not what it's used for. And I have struggled with smoking my whole life, off and on. So it's, I talk a lot about addictions when I speak with people. It's like, yes, I know addictions. I've been smoking since I was 11. So yeah, tobacco's always comes first.
Wow. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just heard this yesterday, um, from a lodge holder, from out west, and they told me, they told a group of us that, that the term elder in itself is actually not the right terminology, and that it should be, lodge holder, or because he said something like elder is actually, um, some other culture. I can't remember. He did say the culture. I just can't remember what culture he said it was. And that it was really just representative of like that culture. And like, I want to say like something to do with like whether it was like the Pope, or like some other
Mm-hmm.
culture where they had elders within their institution.
I think
Um,
they're eldermen, there used to be called.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so I love that question, and I actually a couple of years ago found the answer to that. So because I was from my nation, I work with my elders, right? But being in school and in an urban area, I started branching out and meeting more elders and working with other nations and communities and other elders. And, for a long time, I thought all elders were the same. They're not. They're absolutely not. All of them have all different teachings, they each have all different ceremonies. They're each to their own, right? And so, one thing that I learned is that there's two different types of elders. There's an elder, like um, an elder, and then there's a ceremonial elder, which I think you're referring to as a lodge holder. And
And
in
yours
Cree,
is like, an elder over 50 or 60.
yeah, and I mean, yeah,
And then there's the lodge holder.
and then there's the ceremonial holder. So in Cree, actually, there's two different words for that. So there's a word for an elder, and there's a word for a ceremonial elder. So that's the discrepancy. And then we go back to language again, right? How the English language branches us into one group. And so, yeah, and when people are working with elders, understand that they're not all the same. They all have different teachings, and you can't group. Um, they're just all different, and they all have different ceremonies, right? But they're doing their own individual work that they know they need to do. So,
For sure, yeah, because, so I have my elder that I learned from, and in his teachings, he says that if he's offered tobacco, he does not say no. He says you can't say no if you are offered tobacco. You have to go to where you're being asked to go.
yeah.
Um, but then I was doing an event for Alexander First Nation, and the knowledge keeper there was like, no, if you're offered tobacco, then you just have to make sure that there's somebody, like, if that elder can't do the work or do the whatever they're being called to do, that they're passing the tobacco on to somebody that can do that work, which is too complete. And so I was confused. I'm like, but they said this, and they said
That's what
that.
I'm saying. You can't. generalize because they're all so different. And like here I am a few years ago, like super naive, just getting into like meeting new elders and stuff and thinking I know because I know my elders, right? But all elders are different and they'll all tell you something different. I've had an elder, some people say you have to take the tobacco out of the plastic before you protocol it. Other people don't, right? Like it's all so different. You just, basically, the good rule of thumb is that when you're in somebody's territory, you follow their protocols. And
Yeah,
then,
and so that's what I've been advising, especially like non-Indigenous clients, and even my husband, because my husband, he's been a Scapios for our elder for a long time, that he went to a reserve um, and was a part of their culture camp and going in as a Scapios, and from our elder making assumptions and it not being that way, right? Like you're humbled very quickly, and so yeah, I just advise like anybody that asks, like you have to make sure you're asking a lot of questions beforehand and getting their protocol, because it is so different
yeah, and you
from
can't assume that you know.
yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of, I don't know, I guess they call them traditional elders. And I've learned a lot about working with elders too, because there's some out there that are not really doing it from their heart. They're doing it for money. So I like to work with traditional elders, and those are the ones where if you give them tobacco, like you said, they don't say no. And they don't, there's other people who won't do, there's some elders who won't do any work unless there's a minimum of like a dollar amount. And for my personal opinion, I don't work with people like that, because I work with people who are doing it from a genuine place in their heart, and that's.
And I think this is just a really important conversation, just so our listeners also understand, whether you're Indigenous or not Indigenous, that it is very broad and vast, and that to have this kind of awareness is super important when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to working with or having an elder out at a ceremony or an event or whatever. So looking ahead, what are your hopes for the next generation of Indigenous educators and researchers?
I'm very excited and hopeful for the next generation coming up, because there's so much more knowledge in universities. They're teaching a lot more about Indigenous knowledge and how to teach it. And also, there's so many awesome resources out there. A lot of really great free resources. But when it comes to that, too, make sure wherever you're getting your resources from that it is from an Indigenous or First Nations publisher, or know where you're getting your information from, because there's a lot of people out there grabbing our knowledge and creating programs, and especially universities. So this is like a message for the students, is like kind of a little warning that students are being exposed in universities, Indigenous students sharing their knowledge, because as soon as you share something, and this is actually one of the reasons I haven't been able to finish my research or submit my study, because I don't want to share that knowledge. I don't want to share all my knowledge that I've worked on with this post-secondary institution, because then they own it. So they will own my knowledge after I share it, and I don't want them owning it. So a warning to students is be careful what you're sharing with institutions, because Canadian copyright law does not protect you. And whatever you share, it whoever can take it without that proper transfer of knowledge, without protocol. So all of your sacred information that you're writing in this paper and it goes to the university then owns it, and they're grabbing information from it and building their own courses. And essentially it's almost like digital colonization, what's happening. So I would advise out there, if you're sharing any kind of Indigenous knowledge or information, look up what's called a data sovereignty agreement. And I know this because through my research, I have to have all of these things in place. And so if you go to the Alberta First Nation Information Governance Center, they have a template on there for data sovereignty. So there's even one, you can get a data sovereignty agreement for your school, your institution, and just start protecting your knowledge that way. Or you can contact the AF and IGC for support to see how you can protect your knowledge, because there's a lot of such exciting stuff happening for First Nations people in ways of protecting our knowledge, because there's been so much I don't know what the word is, sadness, I guess, with a like Buffy. Oh my God, I was so sad when that happened. It's like, anyway,
Just like disappointment
very, very, yeah. So,
and and I have to say, like, I'm super appreciative of this conversation because I literally just applied for my doctorate.
ah,
I
yay,
just submitted my proposal, and so
congratulations.
this is all information that is so good for me. And
Oh
so,
my
aside from this, I
goodness.
would love to have a further conversation. And I was actually like wondering about that because yeah, my research when what I'm planning on doing is like very similar about just going out to community and being able
Hmm.
to like continue to learn more and understand more and how it's related to my topic, right? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, totally just such important information for me and for anybody else that
Yeah.
there's so many of us, right? Like even when I was doing my dissertation proposal, like when because I went in again very naive, thinking like, oh, this is not talked about, but then finding out, oh my gosh, there's all of these other Indigenous um, doctoral graduates or current students who have already done a lot of this groundwork, and so um, yeah, just really super important information, especially that data sovereignty
Yeah.
um, form. So in terms of speaking, um, just to wrap things up, in terms of speaking, do you have anything coming up, or what are your favorite topics and subjects that you love to share on stage?
Okay, well, I feel like I've gotten to a good place in my life and I've been doing a lot of healing work on myself my whole life. So I feel like I have some good advice to offer on how to move forward or how to be successful. And one of the most amazing tools that you can use is a horse. So if you can get yourself, there's a lot of horse dance ceremonies, but there's a lot of First Nations teachers that work with healing and healing with the horse. So the horse spirit, it's meant to take our pain. It's meant to take ailments. It's that's its job here is to take and help heal the people. So I've worked with. I could ride a horse before I could walk, and I've worked with horses my whole life. And in my recent years, going to university, I haven't had that opportunity, and I've really seen what I've missed out by not having horses in my life, and they really help me progress forward. So I don't know if somebody's struggling, they can go to horse therapy or even just sitting with a horse and talking with a horse because there doesn't need to be words. They can just take what is ailing you. And so that's one thing that I'm really passionate about and talking about is improving your own well-being through equine therapy. And yeah, and I do
And
have, sorry, go ahead.
and and I feel like you could also speak on, Indigenous education, curriculum, and everything that you kind of do with the Kokoms Foundation also.
Yeah, and actually next month I'm going to Miami. I'm flying down there for a documentary series, and I'm going to be on there talking about the Kokoms Foundation and research. And it's called Legacy Makers, and it's going to be released on Amazon Prime probably after Christmas sometime. So I'm excited about that and to have the opportunity to.
So when is that
Uh,
planning to come out?
November 25th is my day.
That's when you're going to go record, and then
Right.
when are they planning on airing
I'm
it?
not sure. It was supposed to be recorded actually in July, but I just when you do this work, you have to make sure. And this is one. I don't want to say I judge people, but one way that I know if I can work with a person or if they're good to contribute to First Nations knowledge is the way they live their life. So how is somebody living their life personally outside of work? And so I had a really difficult past few months, like my personal life. So I wasn't able to. I was supposed to be in July recorded, but you have to be good in your personal life before you can move forward and progress and do this work. And so I'm in a better place now in my life to be able to speak on behalf of First Nations people and my community. So it's going to be November 25th. And then I think they say about 2 or 3 months after that is when it's
Amazing.
released. Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, me too.
I'm
And
so
you.
Like, I'm excited for all of us just hearing about all of the amazing things that you're doing and your research and what you're going to be contributing to that's going to be so beneficial to all of us Indigenous folks. So thank
Yeah.
you for the work that you do. Where can people find you?
You can go to my website. It's kokomsfoundation.com, Kokom, foundation.com. And actually, I created this foundation for my late Gohum on behalf of her memory, because when I was little and I was mentioning my journal entry, it was around that time. I was severely bullied when I was small. When I was little, I got beat up all the time on the res. And like older. Anyway, so I was really close with my Gohum. And we would talk a lot, and I could never understand how come I was always bullied. Like I did not understand it as a child. Now in my older age I do, but I promised my Gohum when I was really young that I would make a difference, and so that other kids like me wouldn't have to go through bullying. So that's what really inspired me, and what keeps me going is I know my Gohum would be really proud of the work that I'm doing. And yeah, so I'm really I'm really honored to be doing this work firstly. And so I'm very grateful every day for my life and the work I'm doing and my family and my support.
And what is your Kokom's name?
Her name was Mary Louise Ribbonleg Sinpankat. So I go by Sinpankat, and actually when I finish my doctorate I'll be Dr. Sinpankat-Mills.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
amazing.
Exciting, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Are you on Facebook? Are you on
Right.
LinkedIn?
Okay. So yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Kokoms Foundation, and then also my website. And then, well, I'm on Instagram, but you can look for me, Joanne Mills. I'm everywhere. I'm not private.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And if anybody else is interested, event planners, um, anybody's interested in booking Joanne for an event as a speaker, as a facilitator, you can go to www.indigenousprojectevents.com. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe if you don't already. And we will see you at the next episode. Hi, hi.
Okay. Thanks so much, Natasha. Bye.